She had been away from competitive basketball for 239 days. And when Caitlin Clark finally stepped onto the court again, the very first thing she did was not attempt a shot. Instead, on her first 3 touches of the ball, she delivered 3 assists. Almost instantly, Clark entered a FIBA qualifier and produced a performance so unusual that statisticians had to dig through decades of international basketball data just to understand what they had witnessed. 5 of them. 5 separate FIBA world records were erased in less than 20 minutes of playing time during Clark's debut with the senior women's national team. Paige Bueckers was present. Angel Reese was there as well. And Team USA went on to defeat Senegal by a staggering 64 points. So let's break down exactly what those 5 records were, what Team USA coach Kara Lawson said about Clark's performance afterward, and what this might signal for the team's upcoming game. If you're excited to see Clark back on the court, drop the comment "Welcome back CC Record Breaker" below. 5 fresh players have just checked in for Team USA. And if you listen closely to the arena crowd, you can hear the reaction as Caitlin Clark steps onto the floor for the first time as a senior member of the United States national team. The arena is filled with fans who specifically came to see Clark. You can spot the signs everywhere. Indiana Fever jerseys are scattered throughout the stands, and Iowa Hawkeyes jerseys are visible as well. One of the most influential figures in women's basketball has arrived on the court, and she is now logging her first minutes of action. Most players returning after an 8-month absence usually look tight and tentative. They move cautiously, trying to rediscover their rhythm and get their legs back underneath them. So what was Clark's mindset walking into a FIBA qualifier while also being the most heavily promoted player on the entire roster? Clark explained it very simply. She said, "I thought I was going to be anxious, but I was just excited. That's it." That statement perfectly captured her mindset heading into the game. Now let's take a closer look at what those 239 days actually involved. Clark's 2025 WNBA season was disrupted early due to injury, which meant months spent in rehabilitation, time inside training facilities, and long stretches without playing a single competitive game. At the same time, FIBA and its broadcast partner TNT were placing Clark at the center of nearly every piece of tournament promotion. Her image appeared across advertising campaigns, promotional posters, and marketing material for the event. Carrying that level of visibility creates a very unusual kind of pressure. With just under 90 seconds remaining in the first quarter, the ball finally swung toward Clark. She took her first shot attempt of the night, a 3-pointer, and the shot went in. That basket officially became Caitlin Clark's first score of the game. Clark never appeared overwhelmed by the moment. Before the game began, she said she had been preparing for this opportunity for a very long time and expected to feel energized and slightly nervous, though in a positive way. She also explained that the first game back is always the most challenging, but once a player settles into the rhythm of competition, everything begins to feel natural again. In other words, Clark was not pretending that the pressure didn't exist. She simply refused to allow it to control her performance. Looking again at Clark's first basket, you can see the rhythm of the play. She comes off a screen, receives the handoff, and releases the shot. It bounced around the rim, touching nearly every part of it before finally dropping through the net. The atmosphere surrounding the game was already electric, and not only because it marked Clark's debut. 6 different players were making their first appearances with the senior national team in the same game. Paige Bueckers, Angel Reese, Kiki Iriafen, and several others were all stepping onto this stage for the very first time. That created a unique collective energy throughout the team. Everyone was experiencing their debut moment simultaneously. Clark happened to be right in the center of that atmosphere, while also being the player featured prominently on the tournament posters. When Clark was asked what it would feel like to represent the senior national team for the first time, she described the experience as something incredible. She explained that growing up, this was the level of basketball she always watched and admired. Seeing so many great players wear that uniform had always felt inspiring, and now she found herself living that moment. Clark said the opportunity felt surreal. Like one of those moments where you have to pinch yourself just to believe it's real. For someone who had already represented the United States on 3 junior national teams, this moment carried even more meaning. Many athletes get the opportunity to play for junior national teams, but far fewer ever reach the senior level. Clark said she felt extremely grateful for the chance. Even something as simple as holding the American flag across her shoulders before the game was an emotional experience she found difficult to fully describe. She explained that she felt excited to represent her country and thrilled to share the court with so many talented players. She also added that she felt deeply blessed and believed those first moments would always remain incredibly special. What stood out most, however, was the way Clark described her role before the game began. She said that this is a different stage. You're not going to come out here and be the star player. That's not how it works for USA basketball. That is not the type of statement someone makes if their only mindset is to dominate the scoreboard. It reflects a player who carefully studied the situation and entered the game with a clear and realistic understanding of her role. So the real question heading into tip-off was never about Clark's ability to play. The real question was whether she could immediately perform at this speed at this level of competition, and against an aggressive defensive blitz after being away from competition for 8 months. And all of that would unfold within roughly 90 minutes of playing time. After the game concluded, Clark summarized the experience in a very simple way. She said, "More than anything, I'm just happy that I'm super sweaty right now and that I got to play basketball." Clark also mentioned that the rhythm of the game returned to her fairly quickly, particularly once her first three-point shot rolled through the basket. The storyline becomes even more interesting when you consider a key decision made by coach Kara Lawson regarding the starting lineup. Clark did not begin the game as a starter. After hearing about the 5 records she eventually broke, that coaching decision suddenly appears far more debatable. FIBA and TNT had built their promotional campaign around Clark's image. Yet Lawson started the game with Clark sitting on the bench. So let's examine that decision more closely because it wasn't arbitrary. Chelsea Gray started the game at point guard. On paper, that choice makes perfect sense. Gray is an experienced veteran who has won championships and understands how to manage an offense under pressure. From a strategic perspective, the logic was clear. However, the situation quickly became interesting. Senegal opened the game using an aggressive full-court blitz defense, and the starting lineup struggled significantly against that pressure. Gray was moved off the point guard position after only 35 seconds. Just 35 seconds into the game. At that point, Dewana Bonner and Angel Reese began handling the ball, simply to help the team deal with Senegal's defensive pressure. The starting unit simply couldn't find its rhythm. Then Clark entered the game. Her first 3 possessions produced 3 assists. Not 3 assists over the entire quarter. 3 assists on her first few touches of the basketball. The tempo of the entire game changed immediately. That type of impact doesn't always show up clearly in traditional statistics. But every player on the court can feel that shift the moment it happens. On one play, the ball swings over to Kelsey Plum. Plum quickly hands it back to Clark. Clark comes off a screen set by Monique Billings and threads a precise pass inside to Billings for an easy basket. That became Clark's first official assist of the game. The contrast between Clark's approach to Senegal's blitz defense and the approach of the starting lineup was dramatic. Senegal's defensive strategy was designed specifically to create chaos in the backcourt. The goal was to force guards into panic situations that would result in turnovers. Clark turned those same defensive traps into opportunities for fast break offense. She was reading the defense before it even finished forming, pushing the pace, and delivering passes to teammates who were already in scoring position. While the starting unit struggled simply to survive the pressure, Clark transformed that pressure into a weapon. Later, Coach Kara Lawson explained that Clark adds a highly dynamic element to the team's offensive system. Lawson emphasized that although Clark is widely known for her scoring ability, she is also one of the most dynamic playmakers in basketball. The connection between Clark and Ryan Howard proved particularly difficult for Senegal to defend. Howard ended the game with a team-high 21 points, and many of those scoring opportunities came directly from Clark's playmaking reads. Whenever Clark attracted a blitz and kicked the ball out, Howard was ready to knock down three-point shots. This forced Senegal into a difficult strategic decision. If they continued blitzing Clark, they risked leaving shooters open. If they backed away from the pressure, Clark would gain full control of the offense. That dilemma was something the starting lineup had not created at nearly the same level. Lawson later said Clark's passing ability helped ignite the team's offense and allowed them to find their rhythm during the second quarter when the scoring surge began. Now consider the situation from a broader perspective. The player featured on the tournament posters is coming off the bench and outperforming the starting point guard by a noticeable margin. Then Coach Kara Lawson steps to the podium after the game and says the team is still in finding mode when it comes to rotations and lineup decisions. Coaches rarely use that phrase if they are completely satisfied with the current structure. Lawson also repeated that Clark brings a dynamic presence to the offensive side of the game and once again described her as one of the most dynamic playmakers in basketball. Those are not typically the words